Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good old-fashioned lover boy, and welcome to the madness that is the Charlie Marx Show. I'm Charlie Marx, and I've never seen the sound of music. If you're enjoying the Charlie Marx Show, then please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and follow the Charlie Marx Show. Also, please share, as sharing is daring. You can also leave me a comment or tell me what's bugging you in the world with the Devil's Advocate. I can also be spied upon by you visiting www.charliemarx.co.uk. A few weeks ago, for some reason, I had the radio on, possibly because I was doing some DIY, and DIY always calls for a radio to be played in the background. Anyway, when you listen to the radio or a news programme, the news continually repeats itself until there is a big story. I was rather confused when the reporter said that some lynx had escaped in Scotland and they were trying to find it. Surely all they would need to do is put their noses in the air and try to get the scent of a teenager just out of the shower who was going on a date. Coming up on tonight's show, we have all the usual psychotic behaviour, plus some other stuff. But before all the insanity, which is the Charlie Marx Show, it's time for Review of the Week. Today's Review of the Week is an album. This is the album. It's a fabulous new album by Vladdy Putin, titled Vlad, You Made It. It's a brand new album, approximately about 11.5 inches because they had to cut down on the vinyl. It has some wonderful tracks on it. Putting All My Love Into You, Rushing Around, I'm Going to Nuke You With My Love Gun, Fixing the Elections, Playing My Trump Card, The Green Green Grass of Everyone Else's Country, Kremlin Up Your Window, Thanks for the Memories. And if you buy this first edition album, you get bonus tracks such as Stalin Love With You, Moscow to the Party, Trotsky Down the Road. So, this album is Vladdy's first album and his first venture into the music industry, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It really is an amazing thing. The cover is obviously Vladdy and his usual attire, which is, it must have been taken, I think this picture was taken a couple of years ago, not sure, but it certainly is, and his voice is, how can I describe it, a cross between sort of Pavarotti and a kind of Nana Mouskouri. He's a Pavascouri, so I think you'll enjoy it. Coming up later in the show, Sir Percival Homosexual will no doubt have another story, but first, let's take a trip into the unknown for another weekly dose of the bizarre with Manfred the Psychic.
Clara, open the door, come on. I can't sleep out here all night, it's cold. It's very cold, and I have people that are coming to get sick. Hello. Good evening, all. I am Manfred the Psychic, and together with my spirit guide, Bob, tomorrow I shall be getting a letter from a young lady looking to communicate with her dearly departed dog. Bob, are you there? Bob is here. This dog, she believes, has a connection to the spirit world, and indeed, she is right that the dog is powerful with the gift. In fact, I'm getting the sense that the dog, a long-haired poodle with 3 legs called Anita, had the gift of being able to tell when someone was going to die. Yes, I see the dog in an old folks' home, and each time the dog would lie at the feet of one of the pensioners, the following day they would be dead. I see that indeed perhaps the dog was psychic, or a murderer. Now, tomorrow, when I get this letter, the young lady is going to ask me if her dog has a message for her, and the answer is yes. The message is, woof. Join me next week when I shall be communicating with even more spirits. Good night, my believers.
Once upon a time, justified through the bumps of dime, and you told him to catch a Charlie Marx show on the YouTube. Hey.
Thanks for that, Bob. Coming up later, the Devil's Advocate. But first, we have to get a roundup of the latest fake news from around the world and beyond with CM News.
So I was telling John, I know I told him, I said,
Good evening and welcome to CM News with me, J.K. Rowling. Our bottom story. Scientists in Denmark have discovered that men who look at the legs of pretty girls who wear short skirts are normal. Many, especially women, believe that prior to the discovery, men were merely perverts. A scientist in Denmark has been jailed for 2 years after it was revealed that he falsified research results in order to perv on women in short skirts. A woman who parachuted out of a plane in Denmark wearing a short skirt is set to sue the city of Oslo for them looking up her skirt. Teachers across the UK are set to go on strike if their demands for less stupid pupils is not met. Boots the chemist has been ordered by a court to change his name due to the findings of CM News' undercover reporter. A reporter who can't be named as he's foreign and has a really difficult name to pronounce discovered that the chemist does not sell boots. A new report collated by the Foreign Office says that the number of foreigners abroad is set to rise. Kim Jong-un from number 43 South Korea is on his way home from a brief visit to China. The little leader paid over the odds for some missiles and other weapons. He is reported as saying that next time he gets a Chinese takeaway, he'll use Deliveroo. We now go live to the USA as President Jim Bob Jones gives his first address from the Oval Office since becoming president.
My flowing Algerians, my fellow Americans, as your Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to leave my game of golf and address the nation. In the first place, I would like to point out that because this is an Oval Office, I will not be put into a corner should I do something stupid. Thirdly, as Americans will not accept second place, I want you to know that I will be building a wall in my garden. As your commando and chef, I can promise you that this administration will have tougher restrictions and tough restrictions. All those who are eating the dogs will now be banned from doing so, and hamsters will be provided. I can also assure you that you have my assurance that we will not go to war with anyone unless they have oil, gold, or we just don't like them. We will solve the overcrowding problem by 2027 by ensuring that all women give birth to midgets. Racism will be a thing in the past in our great city of America, as everyone will be painted white. The constipation of every American, the Constitution of every American being able to bear arms will be supported by our new T-shirt program. Likewise, an amendment to the self-same constipation to allow all dyslexics the right to bear nugs. I want to put a lot of people's minds at ease by following through. I mean, we will carry out our promise, the same promise that got me elected as the President of America. The promise to annihilate Justin Bieber. Fat women who continue to wear leggings will be made to wear a sign on their rear which reads "heavy load." You can be guaranteed that the economy will go from strength to strength, as the new currency will be monopoly money. The government claimed the right to the monopoly of all board games, with the police and CIA conducting self-regulated door-to-door and attic searches of boring people. I have signed off an agreement to rename the FBI, who will now be known as the FBOGWLCIS, the Federal Bureau of Guys Who Look Cool in Sunglasses. And finally, there will be one more star put on the Stars and Stripes flag of America as we introduce the new state of Canada. Thank you.
And finally, what with Christmas only being 351 shopping days left, the shops are eagerly awaiting the time when people spend ludicrous amounts of money on things they don't need or want. And that was the latest headlines. This is J.K. Rowling for CM News. Good night. Thank you, J.K. More from the CM Newsroom next time. But now my special guest. My guest this evening is famed actor and director. Please welcome via satellite Robert De Zero. Welcome to the show, Robert. I have to say that I'm a massive fan of your work. You're working on a movie right now. Can you tell us about it? Right. Your use of method acting is world-renowned. How did you prepare for this latest role of whatever it is? And which actors inspired you to go into the business? And I think we'll leave it right there. Join me next time when our guest of the show will be someone who can use words. But now it's time to slip into your pyjamas, get your cosy blanket, throw another weasel in the fire and curl up on the sofa with a nice glass of wine as Sir Percival Homosexual reads this week's tale of excitement in The Jesus Secret in Storytime.
Hello, children. Are you sitting comfortably with your police tag on? Then we'll begin. It was 1834, and it would soon be dinner time. But on this day a certain Pope had no appetite. Pope Puri was a simple man who smelled quite nice, but his grasp on religion wasn't his forte. He paced up and down the hallway just outside his bedroom in the Vatican. The look of worry on his face had aged him greatly, and he now looked 27 years old. He was sweating profusely, and would have bitten his nails if he hadn't been on a diet. Two cardinals, Colin and Simon, were walking along the same corridor, discussing the difference between the ordinance of the teachings of Josephus against the readings of the Daily Mail. when they noticed that the Pope was more agitated than he had ever been. Sure, the previous Pope, Pope Gary, was known for his nervous twitch during confession, especially when the confessor was a woman. But never in the history of the Vatican had a Pope ever been as nervous as Pope Puri. Cardinal Colin drew the short straw and was made by Cardinal Simon to go and see what had happened. Slowly Cardinal Colin walked to Pope Puri, occasionally turning to Cardinal Simon, who was holding his sides laughing and mouthing some very unchristian things. Eventually Cardinal Colin was beside Pope Puri. "Is everything all right, your poppiness?" asked Cardinal Colin. The Pope turned, startled to see the Cardinal standing beside him. The Cardinal went to repeat the question, but was silenced by the Pope, who covered the Cardinal's mouth with his hand and then dragged him into his room by the arm. Inside the room the Pope ensured that the door was locked and then looked around his room to make sure they were alone. The Pope walked to the window and nervously looked out onto St. Peter's Square. Cardinal Colin stood bemused at the sight before him. He took a deep breath and walked to the window, standing beside the Pope. What on earth is the matter, your Popiness?" The Pope continued to look out of the window, then taking a deep breath, he turned to Cardinal Colin. "Collywobbles, we have a problem." There was another silence as Cardinal Colin waited for the Pope to continue. The silence continued. "And that problem would be?" asked Cardinal Colin, realizing that no answer was forthcoming. "Listen, Cauliflower," said the Pope, wiping his brow on his sleeve. "What I am about to tell you must never, and I mean never, be shared with anyone out of this room." Cardinal Colin smiled. "Oh, I see. What's her name?" The Pope looked at him confused. "It's not a woman, you idiot." Cardinal Colin looked confused. Usually the issue was a girlfriend or even a wife, but being neither, Cardinal Colin was in the dark. "No matter what the problem is, I'm sure we can resolve it." "Oh, you think so?" replied the Pope, raising his voice. "Not this time, Collywolly. This time the problem is of such complete mahogany proportions, nothing can help." Cardinal Colin patted the Pope on the shoulder, then slowly led the Pope to a chair, and sitting him down he sat opposite him. "There is nothing that cannot be solved with the help of our Saviour." The Pope looked up at the Cardinal Colin with sadness in his eyes. "No, Colly Dolly, not even Jerry Springer can help us." Cardinal Colin was about to explain to the Pope that he was referring to Jesus, but then thought, what's the point? "Please, Popesy Cola, what is it that is troubling you so much?" The Pope took a deep breath, wiped the tears from his eyes, and looked deeply at Cardinal Colin. Jesus was a Jew. Cardinal Colin looked at the Pope, trying to find the right words to say without using Protestant words. The Pope continued, "Did you hear what I said? Jesus was a J-E-W, a Jew." The Pope stood and moved to the window. "You know what this means, Cauliflobble. It means that if all this is true, the Jews will have a Jesus and we'll be left with Kenneth Copeland. It's a nightmare of biblical proportions." Cardinal Colin moved to the window, scratching his head. "What are we going to do, man? I mean, imagine my surprise when I found this out. I was shocked. No, stunned. I mean, this could be the end of all for all of us. We could all be out of a job, and I'm too stuck in my ways to find another job that involves working. And I've just got used to wearing a dress. No, we've got to come up with a plan, Collywobble. We need to do something." Cardinal Colin tried to say something, but was cut off by the Pope. "We need to speak to the head rabbit. Pay him so he doesn't mention a thing. Pay him off. He has to keep this shtum. Pay him anything he wants just to keep this whole thing about Jesus being a you-know-what quiet." Cardinal Colin shook his head and once again put his hand on the Pope's shoulders. "Your Popiness, Jesus was a Jew." Suddenly the Pope spun around to face him. "Christ! The secret's out. How did you find out?" "I read the Bible." The Pope looked at him. I've been meaning to get around to reading that little thing. But what about all this Christian stuff?" So how many people know this revelation? Cardinal Colin squeezed the bridge of his nose. It is common knowledge that Jesus, the Saviour, was born a Jew. So he turned. Cardinal Colin looked confused. Turned from being a Jew to a Christian? What? Replied Cardinal Colin. No, he was a Jew all the way through his life. Christianity was not invented until much, much later. The Pope looked confused. So everything is okay then? Cardinal Colin smiled and nodded his head. And we don't need to bribe the head rabbit. No, we don't need to bribe the head rabbi, replied Cardinal Colin. The Pope slumped back in his seat, letting out a large sigh of relief in his face. Whew! I thought we were in big trouble there, Collie Jolly. Thank you, you have taken a great weight from my mind, and I am so tired now I could just lie down. We will talk about my problem with my wife tomorrow. Cardinal Colin left the relieved Pope and exited the room. Standing outside the room, still laughing, was Cardinal Simon. Everything all right? Asked Cardinal Simon sarcastically. Yes, yes, fine, replied Cardinal Colin. I was just giving the Pope some relief. Cardinal Simon suddenly stopped smiling and his eyes widened. Relief that everyone knows Jesus was a Jew. Oh, I see, said Cardinal Simon, feeling a bit of a relief himself. Still, he continued, wait until he hears about the scrolls that were just dug up, saying Jesus was married. Don't tell him, said Cardinal Colin abruptly, and for God's sake, don't mention that her name was Ashia Shabia.
And Sir Percival will be back next time with another story in Storytime. But now it's time for another roundup of moans and groans and things that go irk in the night with the Devil's Advocate. Welcome to hell, boys and girls, and another thought to ponder in the Devil's Advocate. Question: should we pay road tax? After all, the roads are in an awful mess, with potholes, and then there's faded white lines. Let's be honest, if you walk into a baker's and order a sandwich, and the person behind the counter didn't give you the sandwich, would you pay for it? Of course you wouldn't. And the same has to be said for the roads. If the roads were all nice and even and the white lines could be seen, then we'd be happy to pay for the service. Well, not happy, but, we'd accept that we had to pay it. Councils are always spending money on silly things, so why aren't they keeping the roads up to a standard? My advice would be that if everyone in the world suddenly stopped paying road tax until the roads were up to the standard, then I'll bet there'd be work vans out the following morning. The same can be said for any utility you pay. I know what you're thinking, but if I don't pay my road tax, council tax or whatever, then the council or government will not have the money to repair the roads, etc., etc. This may be the case, but I'm sure this act of rebellion would only happen once, and then knowing the power of what an uprising could do, the roads would be sparkly and new all the time. Thank you for watching the Charlie Marx Show, and remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share and follow me on www.charliemarxshow.co.uk. You can also buy me a coffee or join the channel for more and so much more. So until next time, if you're not subscribed to the Charlie Marx Show, the Tooth Fairy will steal your teeth.